Erev Tov. Welcome back to everybody who was away. Good to have you back. So Pesach is over, as you are all aware, judge on the fact that you're back. But as we spoke about yesterday, Pesach's not really over because it continues all the way until Shavuot. Right? We're counting the Omer, we continue counting. And as we mentioned yesterday, the Ramban discusses this is one long progression, one long time of continuation. We go from Pesach, we continue on from the physical freedom that we gained on Pesach towards the spiritual freedom that we gain on Shavuot. So it's all part of one long process. So it's not really over. But having said that, at least, I think hopefully the Pesach pots and pans and all the kalim have all been packed away. We're back to eating, those who took them out in the first place, we're back to eating chametz, but we still have halachot related to chametz, which still apply now, and that is, of course, is the din of chametz shavar alav Pesach. Right? It's not just, we know, I've discussed here at great length, the halachot of bdikat chametz and biur chametz and mechirat chametz and getting rid of all the chametz and eating the matzah, etc. But it's not over once Pesach is over, because we still have the din of chametz shavar alav Pesach. So the Mishnah in Masechet Pesachim tells us that if you have chametz which was in existence, in possession during Pesach, if it was chametz shel Yehudi, it was a chametz shel Yisrael, it was chametz which belongs to a Jew during the course of Pesach, then that is going to be asur b'hana'ah. It's forbidden to eat it or to derive benefit from it, even after Pesach as well. If it was chametz shel nochri, chametz of a non-Jew, so then we can still get benefit. We can still eat it after Pesach. That's why, of course, we sell our chametz beforehand, as was discussed here back in the Yom Yom. So the first thing is, and this halakha is very relevant for a number of different scenarios. First of all, if we go out and we buy food, we go and we buy chametz after Pesach, go to the supermarket, you go to the makolet, you go to a restaurant, wherever it is, because this din of chametz shavar alav Pesach does not just apply to your chametz, but it's the chametz that belong to any Jew over the course of Pesach, would be forbidden for anybody to benefit from, not just the person who it belonged to. So one is going to be relevant when we go out and when we purchase chametz, and that's why many places, many supermarkets, you'll see they have a tuda. There's the tuda of mechirat chametz to show that they sold their chametz over the Chag, and this would be relevant to the first few, depending on how big the shop is and how quickly the turnover of the produce is, depending on for how many days or weeks, or it's going to be relevant. It also could be relevant if we have a scenario whereby somebody found chametz at home, which they were at home or in the office or somewhere else where you had chametz in your possession, which you were unaware of. You didn't think about it before Pesach. You forgot that it was there. You didn't go searching in that place, or maybe you didn't include it in your sale. What would you have to do once you find that chametz after Pesach? So as I mentioned, the Mishnah tells us that chametz shel Yisrael is going to be asur b'hana'ah. It doesn't explain, is this a din d'oraita, is it a din d'Rabbanan? The hava amina of the Gemara seems to be at first is that this would be a din d'oraita. That's the hava amina of the Gemara, understanding that in the same way the Torah told us that we cannot eat and we cannot get benefit from chametz on Pesach, seems to be that this din of that chametz extends even after Pesach itself. And based on that idea, based on that hava amina, the Gemara asks who is the author of the Mishnah, and it says brings a machloket Tanaim between Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Each of them has a slightly different opinion in terms of when and to what extent the yisurim of chametz, when and how they would apply. And the Gemara's first understanding is that it does not fit with any of the opinions of the various Tanaim. And then the Gemara says no. Actually, it fits in with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon holds that the Yisur of Chametz applies during Pesach, does not apply after Pesach on a Doraita level. So we're not talking about a Din Doraita. We're not talking about an Yisur Doraita of eating Chametz after Pesach. The Din Doraita applies on Pesach. Once you get to the Mimuna, that's finished. But on a Dorabanan level, it says the Gemara, it says Rabbi Shimon that there is a knas. The Rabbanan imposed here a penalty because if you had transgressed the Torah's prohibition of Bal Yareh, Bal Yematzeh, by owning the Chametz of a Pesach, Then the Rabbanan came along and said that after Pesach you can no longer eat that chametz, you can no longer get any benefit from it. And as I mentioned before, often we find when there's a knas Rabbanan, the knas is against the one who transgressed. So sometimes you find this by certain cases of Maaseh Shabbat or different examples, whereby the one who transgressed would be forbidden to benefit from that action or benefit from that object, but anybody else would be permitted to. Over here by chametz, this is a universal knas, meaning it's not just the person who owned the chametz, but as I said, everybody else would be forbidden to benefit from that chametz. But the first principle we see from here is something very important, that the Rabbanan connected. We connect the idea that there is a knas Rabbanan for transgressing the isur d'oraita of bar yireh or bar yematzeh. So the first principle is any chametz over which, even if it was chametz and it was in existence and even if it was in possession of a Jew over Pesach, but it was not that over which one would transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh, the Torah prohibition of owning, then the din of chametz shavar alav Pesach would not apply to it. So, for example, the Shulchan Aruch tells us in the end of Siman Taf Mem Zayin, Taf Mem Zayin is the Siman that deals with tarovet chametz, mixtures of chametz. So, if you have a mixture of chametz, obviously on Pesach you cannot eat it. We discussed this before. How chametz would be before Pesach. We have dinim of chametz. We have before Pesach, we have on Pesach itself, and after Pesach. Right? And each one has a slightly different permutation. So if you had a mixture of chametz that was nullified batal b'shishin before Pesach, that would be permitted. If it was on Pesach, it would be permitted to eat it on Pesach when it was nullified completely before Pesach. If the chametz was mixed in on Pesach itself, then there is no batal b'shishin. But if you have, based on the proportion and the mixture, I'm not going to go into now, the Shulchan Aruch goes in, it's very complicated. There's the way the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch talking about kazayit b'chtei achilat pras and exactly how much. But if there is less than a kazayit of chametz within the mixture, then seemingly again, you can't eat it. Probably midrabanan, you can't own it on Pesach as well, but there is no din bar yireh or bar yematzeh midoraita, and therefore for that mixture, even though it had chametz in it, at least b'diavad, after Pesach would not have the din of chametz shavar alav Pesach, because there was no transgression of bar yireh or bar yematzeh, therefore there is no din of chametz shavar alav Pesach. Bar yireh or bar yematzeh on a Torah level. Okay. But here, this is where it gets a little bit interesting and a little bit complicated, because based on what I've said until now, I'm sure you're all thinking of the following question. You're all thinking of the fact that if we say you did not actually transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh from a Torah level, then it's not chametz shavar alav Pesach, meaning there's no problem to benefit from it after Pesach, at least b'diavad. So you'll say like this. We learned, going back a number of weeks, we learned that when we do have bdikat chametz in the first place, at the first Rashi and Pesachim, we said that when we check for chametz the night before Pesach, Rashi said, why do we do bdikat chametz? Because so that you won't transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh, so that you won't own chametz. And Tosfot jumped up straight away and Tosfot said, Rashi, what are you talking about? But we know in order not to transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh, the person does not actually, from the Torah, does not have to go and destroy all their chametz, doesn't have to go and search for their chametz. We do that, we've done that, Rabbanan, but it's enough with bittul. If you just say bittul, you just nullify, you annul it in your heart and with your mouth, and you say, we all said the declaration Erev Pesach, right? Bittul chametz, once, at least on a doraita level, once you have done bittul chametz, then you don't own it, you don't transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh. Rabbanan said bittul is not enough. Rabbanan said bittul is not enough because everybody will say the bittul, and as soon as and you'll say that it's hefker, and you'll say it's like dust, and you'll say that it's nothing. All the whiskey that you've got in the cabinet is insignificant. And then the moment that Pesach is out, you'll say, well, actually now it's significant again, right? And we're not sure whether a person was sincere, was what they said in the first place. But you've not, so the Rabbanan, they said it's not enough. But the Oraita, we say you do bittul, and that's enough not to transgress bar yireh or bar yematzeh. So, bring that back into the din of chametz shavar alav Pesach. If a person had said bittul, and everybody says bittul on Erev Pesach, and then turned out that there actually was chametz in the house, so you didn't do the bdika, or you forgot to do, or you forgot somewhere, or you found it afterwards, then you would say, well, we did bittul, there was no bar yireh or bar yematzeh, so there's no din of chametz shavar alav Pesach, and Shalom Yisrael, let's just go everything continue as normal. So not so simple. This is the one exception. This is the exception to the rule. The Yerushalmi asks a similar question to this, and says there's a machloket Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish says, based on what we've said, yes, it would be fine. You can have that chametz after Pesach, but Rabbi Yochanan says no. Says if a person just did the bittul or was mafkir chametz before, even though there's no bayirah or bayimatzeh from the Torah, we're still choshesh. We're still worried that it will be insincere, that there might be harama, and therefore this is still considered chametz she'avar alav Pesach. So the Shulchan Aruch tells us the following in Siman Taf Mem Chet. Taf Mem Chet is the Siman also which deals with, this is the din of chametz she'avar alav Pesach. It's a long Siman in the Shulchan Aruch. It's not so long. In the Mishnah Berurah, the Biur Halacha, it's very, very long. It deals with mechirat chametz as well. This is where the Shulchan Aruch, where the Mishnah Berurah and the Biur Halacha goes into all the details of how to sell chametz and what kinyanim work and what kinyanim don't work, etc. A very lengthy analysis. So it says over here, the Shulchan Aruch says the following. He says chametz shel Yisrael she'avar alav Pesach. If you have chametz which belong to a Jew and during Pesach, so it's going to be asur b'hana'ah. It's forbidden to benefit from it, and kal v'chomer, forbidden to eat it after Pesach, right? Even if this was not intentional, even if it was, but you was shogeg, meaning a person didn't know about it, or anus, a person wasn't able to. Somebody came before Pesach. Somebody asked the question that somebody had chametz that was on a ship. It was in their possession, and it was coming towards them, but they didn't have it at hand yet, therefore they weren't able to do anything with it. That would be a classic case of anus. You can't get rid of this chametz. You can't do anything with it. You don't have it to hand. You can't search for it or destroy it. But what do you do? So if you didn't do anything, then this is going to be chametz shavar alav Pesach. So the question is, when the Shulchan Aruch tells us that if you have chametz, you did not destroy it because you were shogeg or because there were circumstances beyond your control. Does he mean to say as well that when you didn't do bittul, so you didn't do anything, or even if you did the bittul, so you did what you could and you got so that it wasn't in your possession, would you transgress? Would you be able to benefit from it after Pesach or not? So two seifim later, Shulchan Aruch again, this is Siman Taf Mem Chet, Seif Chet, he says explicitly, it says chametz shenimtza bebeit Yisrael achar Pesach. If you find chametz in your home after Pesach, asur af al pi shebitlo. It's going to be forbidden to eat it, to benefit from it, even though you did bittul, you nullified it. Now again, we're not talking about chametz which you sold. If you sold it, then that is not chametz Yisrael. That's chametz which belonged to a non-Jew, and this would not apply. But we're talking about if you found something which was not included in your sale, you didn't sell your chametz for whatever reason. Again, with the mechirat chametz going into it, but there are different ways that people do it. Probably more common, where people come along and they just sell all the chametz, whatever chametz is in their possession. And depending on what you do, either you put it away in one cupboard, you know exactly where it is, but you say, it's included in the shtar. Wherever I may have chametz, wherever it is in the house, that will all be included. Some people prefer to be much more specific and to enumerate exactly the places where it is. That has certain advantages of the sale. You say, I'm only selling the chametz, which is in the top right kitchen cabinet, the bottom left drawer in the bed, whatever it is. But then, if there was a bottle of whiskey which you forgot about, which was not in one of those locations, it was not sold. It wasn't included in the mechira, and that's what we're talking about over here. So he says, "Chametz shenimtza bebeit Yisrael achar Pesach asur af al pi shebitlo." So says the Mishnah Berurah the following. He says, even though you did the bittul, or hifkiro, or you made it hefker, so it wasn't yours, v'isro afilu bana'ah, it's going to be forbidden to even to get benefit from it. V'afal gav tikshebitlo eino ve'bal yareh. Even though the fact is you did bittul, so you did not transgress the Torah prohibition of owning it. Mikol makom chashushu chachamim. Nonetheless, chachamim were worried. She'im natiro kshebitlo yesh lechu she'yaniach kol adam chametzo la'achar Pesach. we're worried that if we were going to say everybody can do bittul and there's no din of chametz shavar leva pesach, so everybody's just going to do bittul, and afterwards they'll go and eat that same chametz. And then he says, "V'da, the kama achronim katvu, dafilu badak gam ken keminagenu v'nimtza chametz lachar pesach, gam ken asur bana'ah delo chilku b'davar." This is the question. If you did, so where you just did bittul, but for whatever reason you didn't do b'dikat chametz, you didn't look for it and you didn't find it, and then you had chametz left somewhere in your house, you didn't know about it, you didn't sell it, so you were negligent, you didn't look for it, and therefore we understand that's chametz shavar leva pesach. But if a person did everything they were meant to, you did b'dikat chametz, you went around with a candle, with a flashlight, you searched, found the 10 pieces of bread, you found everything, and you did bittul, and then there was something that for no fault of your own, you didn't realize it was there, you didn't find it, would that still be included as part of this chametz shavar leva pesach? So he says, yeah, the Mishnah Berurah, that this is a machloket achronim. Even in that situation, there are those who say lo chilku b'davar, the chachamim made a lo plug. They said no, it's included, and there are others who say no. He says yesh min achronim shemekilim bebadak ubedel v'nimtza achar kach. The may have a leila meva the leasa kol kadin. Those achronim were saying, what do you want from the person? If a person did everything, Chachamim said you have to do b'dika and you have to do bitul. You did b'dika and you did bitul. You did everything, and then afterwards the chametz turns up that you didn't find. So then there are those who are maker, and he says makom if said merobeh yesh lismoch aleim. If it's in a place of great loss, then one can be lenient. And one can certainly benefit from it or even eat it. As I said, if it's the chametz which is included in your mechira, that would not apply to this. The other thing to remember is that even for those with mechirat chametz, there are those who don't want to rely on it for various reasons. Or some people will sell their tarovet chametz but not rely on mechirat for chametz gamur, for complete chametz. Anybody who goes into the supermarket or the bakery or wherever it is, the day or the days after Pesach, you are, purchasing chametz, which was sold, which the heter of mechirat chametz was used, in order to make this permissible after Pesach. And by understanding that there is a difference between selling my own chametz on Pesach itself or before Pesach, versus purchasing the chametz after Pesach, what we've just explained. That is the difference between on Pesach, chashash is doraita. Our concern is whether you own the chametz, whether it's bal yareh or bal yematzeh. That is one specific set of considerations. After Pesach, all that we are talking about, right, is a din d'Rabbanan. Right, dinim d'Rabbanan are very, very important. You should keep all the dinim d'Rabbanan. Okay, but we understand that there is a difference. Therefore, there is much greater room to understand that we're dealing with a less severe prohibition, and therefore that is why many people who are, even those who want to be stringent on, again, we learned here before that one can rely on mechirat chametz on Pesach itself. But even those who want to be stringent on that there is great room to allow to relying on other people's mechirat chametz, so as not to be transgressing the din d'Rabbanan of this knas of chametz shavar leva pesach. זהו, עד כאן. רבי חנניה בן עקשיא אומר, הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפני חובת מצוות, שנאמר לכבד זמן צדקו, יגדיר תורה ויעשה.